ahead. Madam Clerk, we ready?
Councilwoman Timothy,
Here.
Councilman Galvin,
Here.
Vice Mayor Desume,
Here.
Mayor Bieneme, Councilwoman Estime Irvin,
Present.
Vice Mayor, you have a quorum to proceed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager, do we have any delete?
We have a request for a deferral from the applicant for tabs D and E.
Tab E. Anything else besides those two tabs?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to also confirm B and C. I know that those two were expanding the STTOD, and that's the mayor's item, and he's not here. And then I did get some questions about.
Hold on, Councilwoman. So you would like to defer item B and C
Correct.
as well?
Mhm.
Madam Manager, I'm sorry, Madam Attorney, would we need a vote among us to do that, or is it up to our purview?
So tabs D and E is proposed by the applicant. No vote is needed on that. That's the applicant asking for the deferral. But
Okay.
tabs B and C, because they are being asked to be deferred by the councilwoman, it would require a vote.
Okay.
Okay.
I know that item was.
Can I
sponsored-
ask why?
That item was sponsored by the mayor. I think it was requested by the mayor to expand the STTOD, and then there were some questions about a parcel to be included. So if that conversation comes up, the mayor would not be here to add on to that conversation, and as well as the person who was requesting the STDOD boundaries to extend to allow that property.
I don't personally, if the majority of the council go with it, I'm fine, but I'm okay with it as is, because I think the mayor has an event tonight. It was advertised as is, so if majority of the council, it's up to the council. So if there's a motion to move the item, I'm in
Yeah,
favor
I
of
would
that.
motion to confer B and C as well.
Second.
This is for item B and C. They are requesting.
I have a motion made by Councilwoman Timothy to defer item B and C. The motion was seconded by Councilman Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item deferred by a 4-0 vote.
So now with the, is the agenda set, Madam, well, yes. Go ahead.
The agenda is set. You may proceed.
Okay. Do you advise us, do we call the applicant to, or would you be explaining in terms of item E, D, and F?
Are you referring to items tab D and E?
Yeah,
which have
before
been-
I'm just asking a direction before we have the clerk read
so-
item tab A.
So you may want to discuss what date that you want to reset it for in terms of advertisement.
Mhm.
If we are to state publicly tonight what date that we will be postponing it to, then it will not require the applicant to re-advertise. So you may want to have that discussion.
Well, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thanks.
So-
All right. I'm looking for some clarification. The applicant has just want to make sure I've got this straight. The applicant for the White House Inn zoning change has asked that their item be deferred, meaning it has been deferred and we will not be hearing it tonight.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. The other two items to do with the TOD, we've also just moved to continue those to a future meeting, but you're looking for us to tell you which future meeting?
No, so the tabs B and C have already been, by majority vote,
And deferred.
postponed to a future date. For all of the items, for sake of advertisement, if you were to state tonight what that date is,
I see.
it would save on costs of re-advertisement.
Well, okay.
So, and that would be for all of the items,
Sure.
items B
I
through
would
D.
motion that we continue them all till our first meeting in August, which
Yes,
actually is,
I
I
would
think, the
second
fourth Tuesday
Mm-hmm.
of August. Because we're about to start a summer recess, and I don't think it would be fair to everybody to try to scramble back out here again the week after the 4th of July in just a few days to have another meeting.
Yeah, well, Councilman, before Councilwoman, I would, I'm in favor of that. The only thing I would say, because of the time frame, if maybe perhaps a special meeting a day after, like we did here, because I don't know, since we'll be on hiatus, coming back with several different items. Madam Manager, I'm assuming the first meeting that we are back on August 30th will be packed. So and then we have budget meeting and all these other ones. So I guess perhaps we might want to say, not give a definite date, but perhaps in that week that you are talking about, a special meeting to address these, as if that's okay, because if we have a council meeting on top of this, we will be here.
Right, no,
Yeah.
and I agree with you there. I don't think we should do anything for the applicant's benefit. They've asked for the deferral. Defer it till September.
Yes, that's what
You
I'm
know,
saying.
like that-
The
that's-
first week, whichever, whichever, because you were saying the first week of September, which we got budget, we got stuff, so
So I could-
our first meeting is on the 30th, correct?
Yeah, our first meeting is on August 30th. My understanding from the conversation that they'd like to be on the next one that was going to be available. There was a conversation about whether July, and I
Which
said,
next one?
which would not be available, so the next one would be August 30th.
Oh, okay.
I did not get an opportunity to inquire whether or not they want to advertise to put on a separate date. I can, if I'm given that moment, I could reach out to the applicant
Yeah.
momentarily and find out if they would be willing to go ahead and advertise a new date,
Yeah,
or,
and just for the public's sake, I don't have any problem, I don't think none of us have a problem with the 30th. The problem is we are coming back from hiatus. There's going to be items there. So if we ready to be until 4 a.m. in the morning, which I don't think none of, that's just the situation we try to figure out.
Can
If,
we,
yes, go ahead.
so they'll advertise a new, whichever date, they'll
Yeah,
advertise a new
something
date in
close
August.
into that date. I don't know, it's up to the council.
and Madam, Mr. Vice Mayor, through you to the clerk, to the manager. Can you, if we put this on the August 30th, the White House Inn goes on the August 30th agenda, can you work to then not make that so beastly long? In other words, a lot of times we rush things onto the agenda because this is an emergency, but it's not really that big of an emergency. I'd prefer to, look how much energy we're expending because the applicant has asked for a deferral. I think we should set whatever we're gonna set for our convenience, not for the applicant.
Okay, so we can put it for August 30th, and
What-
for the return, we'll do our best to make sure that we can keep a light agenda.
Can I, is the applicant here? If, I was just throwing some dates. Our first budget hearing is on the 6th, right?
No, so it's on September 14th. The first budget hearing
Okay.
is going to be September 14th and September 28th. There's time to do August 30th, and we also have another meeting date, September 13th. So to the extent there's things that can just move to September 13th, outside of that, we can do that with the next agenda.
So,
I think-
meaning that on August 30th, it will be this agenda,
Yeah, this would be the main item on the agenda, yes.
well, expecting nothing else. Assuming, because that's my concern. We will be gone and we just, by the time we coming back, what Scott is
So
asking.
I can move them, but there's a couple things that I can think of that are coming, that may come on that agenda.
That's-
For instance, we're going to be bidding out for the parking. We were going to have that on that agenda for the Wildcats. We were going to work on that bid process during the break and be ready to bring that back. But I think the difference between August 30th and September 13th is not much. So it would be something so I would probably bring things that could possibly be very quick or not at all. on
Right,
that.
if it's innocuous, I'm not saying to not put it on, but don't schedule, something else that's gonna have 200 people in the room on the same night that we already know we're gonna have 200 people in the room. I think that's what we always do because we take that break that we all need so much, but then we stack the meeting before the break and stack the meeting after the break, and it's almost like, why do we take a break? Because
Everything.
everything's stacked around it.
Yeah, so we'll work on the agenda and move other items.
can I make a friendly, I guess, suggestion? September 6th, just a special, I'm just throwing a date out. If we try to not put everything into one agenda, I'm just, and this is my colleagues here, I'm just,
I
Trying to
would
make it
just keep
different.
August 30th as the date, and we'll do that on the agenda. We can do that.
so are we set with the,
I'm okay with August 30th. Going into September 6th, that's Labor Day weekend. People might be traveling with their family. I think we probably should just stick to our regular scheduled council meeting, because when we go into these special council meetings and then you run into, hey, now the applicant is delaying and people are showing up, I don't want to
yeah,
waste people's
my
time.
only thing is with the August 30th, we need to keep it to this. We
And
cannot
that's up to
add
the administration.
anything else
so-
on there. It
Yeah,
needs to be
The
like this
administration
one.
would-
It needs to be, yeah, real light. It needs to be this special agenda with perhaps, perhaps emergency item that may arise. And that's basically it from the hiatus meeting. And that's about it. So,
And so beyond that, because I opened this by asking
mhm.
clarification on the Wildcat, on the other two items with the TOD, those have also been continued to
Well,
which
August-
agenda?
August 30th, I'm assuming.
So the first one is a second reading that could appear on July 12th, the first one, and the STOD. The question for whether or not that could appear on July 12th, we did talk about whether or not there would be, how many would be there and how many votes are needed for that one. I don't know if it's 4 or
Sorry?
3.
So tabs B and C, because it's a zoning map amendment, requires a vote of 4, so.
So the idea would be that they would all both be on August 30th, based on travel dates.
Okay, so we're continuing all of those items till August 30th. Okay, I can live with that.
Okay. So so now let's just move on to the first, I guess.
So do we have
Madam,
to,
are you?
just for clarification, we don't have to vote on the date, we just say the date for the record and that's okay?
I think we did. We
Yes,
said
the
August
date
30th.
is now on the record. The public has been notified that the items have been continued till August 30th.
Thank you.
And now, Madam Clerk? Oh, well, I'm sorry. Now with all the talking, the back and forth, we just have not gotten the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance by Commander Carlos Miranda. Hey.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we're going to have invocation by John Giordano, please. Yes.
May I have a moment of silence, please? Can everybody turn into the God of their understanding in this difficult time that we have in our world today? God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. May God bless our city council, our citizens, and the poor people in Ukraine, and especially our police department that protects all of us. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Thank you, sir.
do you want to call a 5-minute recess to let everybody who's here leave? Or, I mean, if they want to stick
Yes.
around, great, but I heard we had a ton of people in the
In the
lobby,
lobby.
and I didn't know if everybody would want to come in and out. From the puzzled looks I'm seeing on
Yes,
people's
that-
faces, I'm withdrawing any request for any hiatus, any 5-minute hiatus. Let's rock.
Well, let's take a 2-minute break real briefly, and we'll be back at 5:26. So, listen. Madam. Okay. So what does this mean? No, we have a form, but we don't have a school. Okay, for that one. Okay, perfect. Okay. Mm-hmm. Why would they care? You think they should care?
Delay.
Yeah,
Next agenda.
yeah, let excellent. It's, yeah, oh, nice. Okay, it's 6:30. We are back in recess. Let's start with item number 1. Madam Clerk?
I have to do a roll call. Councilwoman Timothy. Councilman Galvin.
Here.
Vice Mayor Desume.
Here.
Mayor Bieneme. Councilwoman Estime Irvin.
Present.
Vice Mayor, you have a quorum to proceed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we may proceed with item tab A.
Please be advised that the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to speak in favor of, object to, or comment on an item, please complete a public speaker's card indicating the agenda item number on which you would like to comment. Must be sworn in before addressing the city council, and you may be subject to cross-examination. If you refuse to submit to cross-examination, the city council will not consider your comments in its final deliberation. Please also disclose any ex parte communication you may have had with with any members of the city council. City council members must do the same.
Are there speaker cards available anywhere to fill out?
The other day,
They were on the table in the back, outside the lobby.
wait a minute. So they have not done that yet? They have not filled out the card?
Yeah,
yet
most
prior
people.
to-
We
They
received
did?
a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, we received them.
Okay, perfect. Are we, anybody swearing them in? I didn't see anybody stand up.
If you are giving testimony today on tab A, please rise and raise your right hand as I issue the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say out loud, I do.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Prior to proceeding, since this is a quasi-judicial item, is there any disclosures from the council before the applicant proceeds?
Yes, no, I have not had any conversation with the applicant regarding this item.
I have had a conversation with their representative, Kevin Burns, not in any recent couple of weeks, but at some point in the lead up to this being on the agenda.
Well, you saying in between, then I did spoke to Kevin about a month ago. Is that part of that, or is it in between from the last meeting and this meeting?
If it's in regards to this application, then it should be disclosed.
I believe, did we speak, Kevin? I believe we did once, about a month ago.
So I've had a conversation that this would be an item. That's it. No
Yeah.
detailed conversation, but just
That's the same.
for the sake of disclosure, I just want to state that on the record. Thank you.
Any presentation, Madam Manager?
I have to read the item first.
Mhm.
All right.
Did you read it, Madam Clerk?
Sure. Tab A, a proposed quasi-judicial second reading ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, providing a text amendment to chapter 29 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances by amending Article 4, Division 2, entitled Zoning Districts, specifically at section 4-202, modifying types of uses allowed in the C-2BW zoning district and amending Article 7 entitled Definitions, specifically at Section 7-101, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, correction of scrivener's errors, codification, and an effective date. And we have received speaker cards from the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. I just for point of clarification, Madam City Attorney, is there a supermajority vote needed on this item?
No, it's a simple majority on this item.
Thank you.
Presentation, Madam Manager?
I defer to Derek Cook.
Good evening. Derek Cook, Director for Community Planning and Development. Just as a clarification, this item was visited on the June 14th meeting where Mayor and Council did a 5-0 vote to approve it. The applicant had proffered an item on there to have their specific site limited to 65 outside stock vehicles. However, when you made a vote on it, you voted to say 65 for any site. I just want to bring about a clarification. Is your intent to have it that way, or did you want to specifically isolate it to the applicant's site?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I would look to, if we approve this, and I've got some questions, if we approve this, I was certainly thinking it was strictly for the Fiat site, if you will.
And
Get ready
Derek,
for my questions.
no, also Derek, I was under the impression that's what we were talking about, even with, in terms of the design and stuff that we did receive from the applicant and the discussion that we had during the first meeting in terms of the zoning and different areas that where it is permissible to have, outside car dealership. But in particular, we thought it was, at least I thought it was that particular site.
Okay. So we would need to, for the sake of clarity, we would need for this reading, if you so choose to vote to approve it, to specify specifically for this site, because at the last
Correct.
meeting, it was voted for site in general, not just for this one.
one.
That is correct. Thank you.
So we would amend it for this
For
site,
this
and I
site.
think we have, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We good?
We're good.
Okay. We have any presentation from the applicant
Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor and council members. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. At the first council meeting, we gave a in-depth presentation that you all had asked your questions at and so forth. Nothing has changed. Nothing has come to attention. In conferencing with city staff, there's no new issues that have arose since our last council meeting. We're happy to answer any questions that any member of the council have. We have the attorney and the owner of the facility here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, for the public, we have 2 mics. Please, let's use both to the left and to the right, and please give your cards to the clerk. Please, guys, do not wait until one is finished. There's 2 mic, so please go to the next one, the next speaker. Yes, if you're going to speak on the matter, go ahead, but if not, go ahead. Yes, hi, Sarah.
Hi. Sarah McDevitt, 14490 Northeast 10th Avenue. So for me, when I heard first about this proposal was at the last council meeting, and I started to investigate more what it would mean for this area that we have along Biscayne Boulevard to the west. And as I understood in reading, all that was being presented was that this was a code change that would apply to the entirety of that area, allowing for multiple dealerships then to be permitted, or essentially that the zoning was going to change so that car dealerships would be permitted all along that area. I heard every 2,000 feet, or I read every 2,000 feet, but then I heard discussed every 1,000 feet. Maybe it is not something that I properly understood, but from reading and investigating a bit more, that is the way that it appeared. The dealer that we currently have in that location, obviously a great community partner and doing, the work that he set out to do in that location. But my concern is that if we do allow dealerships to expand in this area that is potentially our future TOD zone and an area that really could be a live, work, play zone, the idea of having additional dealerships in that area doesn't really work well with an area that's, alternative transit focused, that we're looking to add density, more shops and restaurants to. And my hope is that we would move carefully with this item and make sure that we really understand what we're getting. Thank you.
Kenneth Each, 13045 Emerald Drive, North Miami. I walk by this dealership every day. In fact, I walked through the dealership yesterday on my 6-mile jaunt in the morning. And I totally agree with this ordinance. I think this is well worth it. The place is clean. He's got nice cars out there, and he has a whole range. If we remember that, this was a Blockbuster, and this sat vacant for a number of years. Now, we talk about car dealerships. I look at Lexus up on 142nd Street. Beautiful place. $40 million went into that place. It's gorgeous. The wave of the future. You look across the street on 151st Street there. You have another car dealership over there. Beautiful place. It's not like the old days when we had Crippen Oldsmobile and Monroe Zeta, where you had the cars out there and blah, blah, blah. These car dealerships today are really first class. Now, he has a small lot over there, and he wants to display his cars. He keeps the place immaculate. It's right across the street from Alaskan Coffee. I walk there every day. I'm glad they're there. It gives us commerce in this city, and that's what we need. Thank you.
Hi, Karen DeLeon, 1935 South Hibiscus. I have not done my full research on this. I was told about it the other day. For some reason, I was busy with something else. I kind of go both ways. I really miss the Blockbuster. I mean, it was fun,
It's
right?
not coming back.
I know. Come on, Back to the Future, people. But remember how we'd run into neighbors, we'd run into friends. I love the idea of, people said they went to a great birthday party last night at Deezer, and they had bowling, and it's just so cool when we can. Do you remember we used to ice skate? We used to do so many fun things. I can't speak to whether is this a great idea, not a great idea. I can speak to it was opened as a boutique. That was my memory. It is always overfull. There are cars all over the place. Is it the way you want to go for the future? Is it not? I don't know for this one property. I do know that I really hope it just doesn't become one car dealership after another car dealership after another car dealership. That would be what my greatest concern would be. Thank you.
Hearing none, is there anyone else? I think that's,
We did receive some public comments, previously submitted public comments for this tab. Vice Mayor.
Go ahead.
Nicholas Davis, 1165 Northeast 127th Street. Comment for tab A. I am asking you to withdraw this item from tonight's agenda because the description in the agenda gives the public no idea what this item is actually about. The only reason I know what it is about is that Sarah McDevitt explained to my wife, Deborah Davis, and she explained it to me. Why are we paying the salaries of the city staff and city council members when they fail to inform the public about important matters like this? An activity conspires to hide the people's business from the people. That is not a democratic way to run the city, and it is absolutely has to change. If the city council considers and approve this item based on the descriptive and vigorous description on the meeting agenda, you should all be ashamed of yourself and should not expect the voters of North Miami to vote for you again. Thank you, Nicholas McDavis. Deborah McDavis, 1165 Northeast 127th Street. Comment for tab A. The purpose of the Transit Overlay District is to create a walkable, human-centered area around the train station we all hope to see on Northeast 123rd Street. The surest way to ensure that never happens will be to allow car dealerships along Biscayne Boulevard in that same area. Allowing car dealership will simply create large dead zones along Biscayne Boulevard and crowd out small businesses, restaurants, cafes, and other social gathering places. Can you imagine arranging to meet someone for a night out at Biscayne Toyota? We do not need car dealerships on Biscayne Boulevard. We need businesses that will create attractive urban ambience that will make people want to leave, work, and spend their evening in North Miami connected to other neighborhoods by local passenger train service. Changing the zoning to lay out a welcome mat to every developers looking for a business opportunity is exactly the opposite way of what we and our neighbors need. Please vote no on this item. Thank you. Deborah Davis. Carol Francis Keys, Esquire, 1911 Northeast 172nd Street, North Miami Beach, Florida, 33162. Madam Clerk, I am requesting that you read this for me at this evening's council meeting, as I am unable to attend this evening's meeting in person. Mayor and council, I am sorry I cannot attend this evening, but this issue is very important to the future residents of the city of North Miami. Tonight, you are voting on a text amendment to the LDRs with an ordinance which seriously waters down the strict use of boutique car dealerships on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard with the C-2BW designation. The original definition, vehicle sales / displays, minor, new, was originally adapted for the Fiat dealer to open a boutique showroom for displays in showroom with parking outside for 20 vehicles. The applicant has outgrown the space for many years, has filled its entire lots with cars right up to the sidewalk on Biscayne Boulevard, both new and used. And if you checked with code, I would assume exceeded its car limitation. The text amendment you are voting on eliminates the 30% limit on used cars and allowed used cars as a subordinate use. What does subordinate mean? And how will staff measure this criteria? This is This is a change allowing used cars with no limitation or enforcement. The present maximum outdoor storage is 20 cars. This has been changed to 65 outdoor storage vehicles. This blanket amount should not be written this way. It should be determined based on the property size, layout, and legal parking spaces allowed on the property site. Does the west side of Biscayne Boulevard really need more car dealerships with packed parking lots full of used cars? This is not an enhancement or positive addition to Biscayne Boulevard, but a potential for adding blight to a street that has become a walkway for many new businesses and restaurants. Please don't water down this LDR to accommodate one business that cannot comply with its original application, only to have more of the same. Send this LDR back to add limitations to outdoor storage, percentage of used vehicles, and a better definition of whether any repair may be done on the property. And that's all the comments we have received for that tab.
Sure. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Councilman Galvin, hold on, Mr. Mayor.
We just,
Former
Vice
Mayor.
Mayor, through you to staff, I'm hearing stuff tonight that I didn't hear the last time. Talking about 65 autos at the Fiat location is one thing. Is it accurate that this, as approved, would allow people to have 65 cars or any other amount and promulgate a lot of different used car lots up and down Biscayne Boulevard? No. Sorry, Kevin, I know
No,
we've
no,
talked,
just
but
didn't know if it
get
was
ready for
directed
my
to us.
questions.
Yeah.
Get ready for my questions.
Yeah.
Should have taken that deferral.
Through the city manager, Councilman, the way the ordinance is you have a new definition that has been created in there. Let me get my notes.
So make it an easy question. This item, as I understood it, was for 65 autos at the Fiat location. Was that accurate, yes or no?
No, the applicant proffered that specifically for their site. So what we have going on here, we have several layers here. We have a distance separation of 2,000 linear feet. With that distance separation would pretty much eliminate any opportunity for any other new dealership to come in on Biscayne Boulevard. Because once you had 2,000 linear feet, then
why do that then?
to eliminate the opportunity for any other new dealership to come up on Biscayne
But why,
Boulevard.
if, I think it's again a situation where the city's overcomplicating something. If the applicant came forward asking about their location, you've jeopardized my vote by now saying it could be applied to several other locations, but no, not really, because the distance won't be.
Yeah.
Why are we making it so complicated? If they're asking about the address of Fiat on Biscayne, why aren't we just here talking about that?
So we are doing a text amendment. We do a text amendment that is related to a specific zoning district. It applies to all properties within that zoning district. So if you don't put any kind of caveats in there, as we have done, then it opens it to everybody. So if we just went in there and we said no 2,000 square foot, 2,000 linear foot separation from dealerships, with the new text amendment, what you would have is that anybody who wants to do a dealership that meets that criteria, which is in the C2BW zone, can do it.
Okay. I follow now then.
Yeah.
I follow now.
Madam, I did too have a question, and I did think Sarah, who brought it to my attention, because it's a little complicated, and I wish, Derek, during briefing, you would explain it to us, because you know this, you mean, the professional, in terms of knowing our, city code. However, when Sarah, texted me in regards to that, we thought, well, at least I thought that the vote that I took was in reference to the Fiat, and then I guess the 2,000, and now hearing the explanation about the 2,000, why it was needed in terms of that. How do we then get that accomplished, and can we do both? Get that accomplished, talking about that particular dealership, the Fiat, and trying to see what we could do with the 2,000 or make it, I guess, maybe longer, or I don't know. And just to say this, there was a comment that was read that we did not meet or did anything to advertise this properly. That is not accurate, and that is not true. And I know for a fact the city, we have advertised, and if you click, there's, the ordinance, everything was there. It may be a little hard to understand all of these language, but there was nobody, who's trying to hide anything. So going back to my question, Derek, how do you do things like that when you do have a district and you're worrying about the other district disapplying to other districts?
Forgive me, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm not fully clear what your question is, but as I understand it, I would attempt to address it.
Okay. In terms of the complication with the Fiat being 65 and then all other dealerships around there, is there a way that we could deal only with the Fiat dealership and address and do not address the other ones like you just did with the 2,000 limit? How many other dealerships would that talk about the 2,000 within the code, on Biscayne Boulevard? And what other area that has the same zoning in the city are we talking about here? Because that does jeopardize, where I was going with this.
Okay. So as it stands right now, let me just, forgive me for the sake of being holistic about where we are with it. So what we have right now, without this text amendment, we have a definition that is called retail, all right? And within that retail definition that the Honorable Carol Cleese spoke about in her letter, it allows for you to have a dealership if you have 20 cars on display outside and you are restricted to only 30% of pre-owned vehicles in the 2B, within any commercial district right now. That's what we have right now. Now we have come before you with a text amendment that allows for a vehicle sales within the 2BW that is restricted to the definition that we have, that we are bringing before you. The definition that we are bringing before you now would be vehicle sales display minor, and this is what this use would be. Means a business or commercial activity involving the display and or sale of principally new automobiles, small trucks and vans and other small vehicles or transport mechanisms, and vehicle service. The sale of previously owned vehicles shall only be permitted as a subordinate to the principal use. To speak to the Honorable Carol Cleese, subordinate. So however you want to define that, we could put a specificity like we had before, could only be 30% of all the vehicles can be pre-owned, or you can say 50%, or we can leave it as is if you have a concern as it relates to the number of pre-owned vehicles as it relates to this definition.
So if we are talking about text amendment, we can't apply it just to one property in terms that's the question.
Yeah,
that's the answer.
So
it's no. I just want a yes or no.
It's no.
Okay.
And then, if I may, Mr. Vice Mayor, so to bring that specificity, I believe you're speaking of, so it can be specific to this dealership, we put in the caveat.
Well, you just said it can't be. So it doesn't really matter.
That's why we put in the definition.
That's what I'm saying.
2,000 linear feet, and then
but the 2,000 would apply anywhere else.
So yes, because what we are doing is for the C2BW, we're allowing for this use, and this use, then you have to have a minimum separation of 2,000 linear feet for any other new use. So if that means if I wanted to come in today
I,
after this
I,
interview,
I got you.
have to make that
I don't know if any of my colleagues have any other questions, because we're trying to get out of here by 7. Yes.
Right, so, to the applicant, would you be comfortable, I'm in the mindset of putting a limitation of 30 used cars. Is that language that, so I'm okay with the 65 being specific to
You
that?
can't do that, he's saying, right?
We can do that, I thought we could.
Can?
We can. We can
So
make it
X
that.
number of
And-
new, X
that-
number of used?
Yeah,
Right.
so I think where the definition has subordinate, just, it really means that their primary use is supposed to be new cars, but
cars,
it didn't give a limit as to the number of the used cars. So if you change that subordinate, you can change it
Right.
to have a limitation on the amount of old vehicles as you're going through the definition now.
Because I think part of the concern a lot of the folks are having, and part of the concern, which I didn't have until Sarah brought it to my attention, is about the other, the other dealership. And I do agree with what Councilwoman Irving is saying, but I think most of the conversation I was hearing is about what's happening around if this happens. So that's what I'm saying. And I asked you that question, you say no. So are we saying, can we apply? I don't have any issue with that where it does not impact the entire zone. Is there something you could do within the text amendment?
So as it stands right now, you have existing car dealerships on Biscayne.
Yes.
With that, so with those existing, and forgive me for going back, and if I'm being redundant, my
No, that's
apologies. That 2,000 linear feet, I think is addressing your concern, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Because that limits who else could come in. We have what we have right now.
Okay.
But if I wanted to come in with a new dealership, if I can't meet 2,000 linear feet from the existing or from that Fiat, I can't come in.
But even if, okay, let's just say you can, but would it be that where you will have to, would you have to come here and apply if you want 65, or if we put 65 there, you will automatically have 65?
So the applicant himself proffered for their site specifically to be limited to 65 out
I
there.
understand, I'm okay with that.
So if I was, let's say if we had by some circumstance, somebody was coming in and they wanted to bring in a new dealership and they met that 2,000 linear feet, they wouldn't be restricted to 65 cars outside.
That's my concern,
Yes.
and I think that's everybody else's concern. So you kind of run around the whole thing, and I think that's where Councilwoman Irving, Estimate Irving was going. If it's now, I think, what's the limit now, 20? With
Under the
text
current
amendment?
definition, you would be limited to 20
Yeah,
vehicles displayed outside, and you are limited to
And-
30% of them being pre-owned.
yes, and I
Voted
think,
for.
if I may, I don't know if that's where you're going.
Right.
She's saying that maybe 30, because because you got to remember, my question was if we could do something only applying to the Fiat, we okay. And Sarah's, that made me kind of aware, and I think everybody else, was this text amendment not only apply to, again, I don't have any issues, because I thought it was, the Fiat, and we all, whatever concerns folks have, and you hear Karen De Leon, even, it's kind of look nice and this and this and that, and, but we concerned about others coming in, and that's the problem. And I do not want, the 65, 2,000 feet or whatever the case is. So maybe as a company, if they willing to do that, the 30, maybe that we could look at, I wasn't here to do that, but I'm okay
Right.
with maybe as the 30, but that's the problem, is that, and I would ask that those type of things during our briefing, if you would inform us about those, because I only thought that we were speaking of that particular, property, not, the others. Yes, Mr. Bryan. Yes,
Mr.
Bryan.
Vice Mayor and Madam Council Member, you've asked very good questions that you should ask. But let me clarify it in layman's term, very simple. As of right now, retail car dealerships can be anywhere in this city. With this text amendment, we take out retail car showrooms from everywhere else in the city and only put it in the CB2W. CB2W is a very small district on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard, goes up to a little bit to 16th Avenue and meanders a little bit on 123rd. To enhance it even more so that you don't get a proliferation of dealerships, we added a 2,000-foot setback between locations. If you know Biscayne Boulevard, this Fiat dealership has been there for going on 12 years. No other vehicle dealership or showroom has come in that whole time. The only one that ever did was Volvo, where we thought they were going to go into the 8-story building, but that never came to fruition. So not only did we removed it from any other district, and it's only in the 2BW, and you're adding the 2,000-foot distance separation, which you do not have now. And this location, this owner says, I will limit the vehicles to 65. When anybody comes to get say somebody wants to come and open up a dealership, they got to come to you for a special exception. They got to apply for a special exception. And you, at that point in time, can put any conditions on there that you want. It's not by right. It's allowed within that zoning, but they have to go through the special exception process, which gives you such a great amount of control. We will, and I believe the applicant will, let me just double check.
Question, Derek, if it's in the, if we change our text amendment, why would they need to come to us for a special thing if they need to, if, let's just say 50 cars they wanted to display?
So as part of this text amendment, to allow for this use in the C2BW, you need to go through a special exception to be able to do it, which would require approval and review by the Board of Adjustment. So that's another layer that we put on. So you have, as the former mayor spoke, you have a special exception process you would need to go through, and you would need to meet the distance separation to be able to enter a new dealership on the Biscayne Boulevard area. You know, for full disclosure, someone could come in and say, okay, I want to seek, if you were to pass the text amendment as it is, they could come in and ask for a variance to deviate from that 2,000.
So the CB2W, what other areas in the city that has that designation?
It's on Biscayne Boulevard, as Mr. Burns spoke. Biscayne Boulevard, and then you do have
Only?
then you take a
Mr.
right
Eric,
onto
Mr.
123rd.
Mr. Derek, Mr. Cook, what other areas in the city that has that designation? Only?
Primarily on the west side of Biscayne Boulevard, and then you have a
Only?
little bit.
Right.
I
You're
just
complicating
want-
it.
yes.
Is it on Northwest 7th Avenue?
No.
Is it on West Dixie Highway?
No.
Is it on 6th Avenue?
No.
Okay, then it's only on okay, then, so that, thank you. So, okay, so if that's the case, then the 2,000 feet, then we really, you know, then it's, so I defer to Councilman Galvin because I do have some other questions. Yeah, and then I'll go back to Councilman, to Councilwoman Esther Irving.
She
You wanna go
hasn't
first?
gone yet,
Go ahead,
so
Councilwoman Galvin.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
So what I think, hearing the concerns and just trying to have a win-win situation going on, I would recommend that we amend it to make sure that it's just 30% pre-owned cars, and then we could just extend it instead of 2,000 to 5,000 feet. That way, everybody has a comfort level that there's no dealership that's coming, which I think this already intends it, but it seems that the 2,000 is not sending that message. Let's just do it into 5,000 feet, and that would be my
That's putting
amendment.
everybody out the city. I did have a number, Councilwoman Irving. I was thinking about, I don't know, what, 3,000, and perhaps from the 30, maybe
Okay with that.
maybe 40, and kind of that's it. I don't know from I guess our boundaries from 119 all the way up to 140 something, depending on where you are looking. So possibly, I don't know where.
So
Anybody
if
else
it's
could
on
be
Biscayne,
creative.
if it's majority, if
Yeah.
if this zoning, the CBW zoning is on Biscayne, our city limits are what, 151st to 111?
Yes.
Correct?
It doesn't go that far.
Not quite that far south, ma'am, but
One-
it's
one-
kind of.
About
So you're
119.
probably looking at maybe about, I'm saying
119.
roughly 4 blocks south of 123rd. that
That's
the city
119,
extended to
Derek, in front of
151st.
the,
Yeah.
yes, 119.
Whole Foods.
Right.
And Madam Councilwoman, first you said 30 vehicles or 30%. If it's 30 vehicles,
30
it
vehicles.
makes
30
sense.
30 vehicles.
Or
I
is it?
said 30%.
Okay, 30%.
I'm sorry, I never. if
And then
I-
the
let me
Vice
correct that.
Mayor had
I was
said 40.
going with actual, your amendment, your text amendment was 65 vehicles, right?
Total, we did
Total,
that.
yes.
And
I was going with the
to make
actual
sure that
number.
there wasn't too many, and in discussions that we had, that was a comfortable amount, far less than what could have been there or have been there, and so we're reducing it to be, limited to that. Because again, they've been there for 12 years, and you don't have a proliferation of vehicle dealerships showing up anywhere.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's why I'm willing to go with the 65 flat,
Mm-hmm.
because we won't have a way of knowing which ones are the used cars and which ones are the new cars, and I wouldn't want to see our code enforcement people having to spend every day walking through the lot to say, can you show us the papers? Is this one new or used? That's,
It's usually advertised.
Yeah, but-
From what I see, meaning on the card, it's usually markings that says what's.
and
new,
maybe
what's
so,
new.
we'd still have to have code enforcement there, at least regularly, to, although something I'm about to bring up, maybe that's something they'll need to do on their visits, because I'm concerned that they won't keep it to 65, that
I
they'll
know.
try to put on more, and that's sort of how this evolved to where it is now. It
More
did start
dealership or more
it did-
cars in the?
More cars. So I'm just, for a minute, I'm just gonna talk about the Fiat lot.
Oh.
It did start as a 20-car boutique lot. And over the years, they added a few more, and it just sort of, we let it roll until it reached the point where, staff wanted to bring it back for some clarification. So I'm okay at, finally capping it, but to staff, if that's what we do, cap it at 65, I'd like to hear, not necessarily tonight, how you would then enforce that. We used to have a resident who walked around that lot counting cars every day. I don't want
Yeah.
somebody to have to do that. I mean, we can't control if a resident does want to do that, but you follow what I'm saying, for staff, everybody's on their phone right now.
Mr. Galvin, as far as the applicant goes, we.
I can see your phone.
Mr. Galvin, as far as the applicant goes, you have been very helpful and very forceful on making sure that they live up to what they say they're going to do. And I assure you, after this 2-year process that has come through, they will abide by that 100%. That particular site will only have the number of vehicles, and I think it makes logistical sense of what you're recommending of just 65 vehicles. Because what's happening in the vehicle market now, some new cars are not available. They're behind trying to buy a new vehicle. So you only have a certain number that you can put on display. And then somebody trades in their vehicle. Sometimes they go out. It goes back and forth. So one day you may have 20 you may have 20 used, and the next day you might have 22. For the abundance of making things simple for code enforcement, all they got to do is count 65 cars. That's it. It's done. Whether it's a demo that has 1,000 miles on, but it's a brand new Fiat, but that's considered used. So that's for simplicity and enforcement issue. If it's the 65, it's across the board. There's no ifs and buts about it.
Well, Mr. Byrne, the 65 bring us back to where we were, and that's the concern of the folks. So my friendly amendment would be, again, I would be okay with the 65. Then I would go back to Councilwoman Estimate Irving feet concern and put it at 8,000 feet distance, and I'm okay with that.
8,000.
Yeah, because we try not to, because the concern of the folks is not having, they have concern about the Fiat itself, but if what I'm hearing from, and I'm okay to go with that, the biggest concern is these popping up on the west side of Biscayne. So we hear the 2,000 is okay, 5,000. So is 5,000 get us out, like, okay, good, okay, that's what I'm trying to, I want them to actually feel like where we really, really, we get the message. So if we're doing the 65 for that, then 5,000 feet distance, I'm okay with that. That means, what does that mean for that corridor, Mr. Cook?
With 5,000 linear foot, you wouldn't be able to bring a new dealership in the city on that corridor.
Alvin? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, used car dealerships have different connotations today than they did back then. I know what Chief Each was talking about. There used to be wide open lots on Biscayne Boulevard and 123rd Street with people on the microphone. Bobby, come get your car. It's ready for wash. You know, that kind of stuff, and it drove everybody bananas. I don't want us to
We've never had that.
Did I use that voice right? But, you know, I can certainly see limiting it to it just staying in that B23, you know, W, and
Yes.
then,
Yeah.
you know, whatever the distance. I get now what Mr. Cook did effectively explain it to me, why there'd be the distance in there to, you know, sort of box anybody else out from doing it. And I'm okay. If they're boxed out at 1,000, I'm okay. If they're boxed out at 3,000 feet, okay. You know, that I'm okay with. So,
Okay.
but I did have a couple other questions.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. I'd like to see whatever we approve tonight, I'd like to see it reviewed in 6 months and brought back to this council if necessary. So if we approve it tonight and, you know, 6 months from now, we've got 100 cars there because a resident was counting them or staff was counting them, that we have a mechanism to bring it back for further consideration. We used to do this all the time.
Yes.
If we could, it's in place, you've got 6 months. If you're on your best behavior for 6 months, it doesn't need to come back. If it does come back, you know, any number of things. So I'd like to proffer that as a condition for approval. And then I just have to say, please get those Fiats off of the public streets that bend in there past past the Alaska Coffee Hut. If you're putting 65 cars on your lot, they have to stay on your lot, not on the public streets. And I know occasionally it's not real, it's only 1 or 2 Fiats, but then your customers are parking on the public right away. And I drive in there pretty regularly to go to the gym or the Publix or whatever, and there's always a bajungle, is that a real word? I don't know. A whole bunch of cars parked there, and I don't want you to say, well, we can do 65 cars on lot, but we'll have 10 customers parked on 127th Street or whatever that cut through is.
We understand
Right,
what you're saying,
so
Councilman, and perfectly agree with that.
I have a question also, and thanks for talking about that. So, to you, Mr. Cook, what is the allowed parking for Fiat right now for the customers? How many are they allowed?
So it's based on, it's a commercial use, so it's 1 parking space for every 300 square foot.
And so what does that equal?
I don't know the size of the building, ma'am. Forgive me, I'm not able to give you that specificity.
Can the applicant
We-
answer that?
we,
How many parking spaces you
there's-
have available for your customers?
When the building was originally approved, you had to meet the fire department's ratio, the city's ratio for parking for the square footage of the building, regardless of the use. It was the square footage that was required, like he said, 1 parking spot for every 300 square feet, which they do have.
Okay.
And one of the other things, too, they have already met all the landscaping setbacks and so forth. And so that's why we came up with a set
So
number.
can somebody answer my question,
Yeah.
please? Maybe the applicant. How many parking spaces do you have for the customers?
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Bill Riley, 1671 Northwest 17th Avenue in the city of Miami, appearing on behalf of the applicant as his attorney. Right now, the brick and mortar building that's at the property is approximately 3,000 square feet of showroom space. At 300 parking spaces per 300 is 10 parking spaces for visitors. And the reason that we wanted to limit it to 65 is because that gives us a surplus of additional parking spaces for our guests. So we exceed your code requirements. And that's what I wanted to share with the director a moment ago. When I was
So
talking to
you're
him.
telling me that there are 10 parkings for customers? Is that what you're saying
No,
to me?
I'm saying that's what the code requires.
Okay.
We're gonna have much more.
So, I mean, I'd like to table this if I can get some answers. If not, I mean, no one knows how many parking spaces are available?
So we're required to have 10.
We have probably like 20 of them.
Okay, so thank you. That's all I'm trying to figure out. Thank you, Carlos. So you have about 20 parking space? And so when you're asking to display those 65 cars, will they take any of those parking spaces?
No, they won't.
Okay, so that's all I was trying to determine. Thank you for answering my question.
Are you done, Councilwoman?
I am.
I'll offer a motion then.
Go ahead, go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll offer a motion that we approve the request that's before us this evening, capping it at 65 cars, limiting it to the B23W district, hope I got that right, with a 6-month review.
We didn't agree with the distance. What are we doing? 3,000,
Well, yeah.
4,000?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll just say the original 1,000 that was.
No, we're not doing 2,000, Councilman.
5,000.
No, we don't have to do.
5,000, we want 5,000, 5,000. I heard 4,000. When you've been up here this long, you get to be a fool.
I don't want to disrupt the whole thing. What's
3,000.
reasonable? 3,000, 35, 3,000. Okay.
3,000.
Yeah.
My motion, then I'll accept
Yes.
that amendment.
Thank you.
Everything I just stated with the 3,000-foot distance included.
And I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, we're trying to get out of here by 7 and we're 20 minutes late.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve the item at tab 8 with the amendment stated on record. The motion was seconded by Councilwoman Estime Irvin. Councilman Galvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Desume, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilwoman Estime Irvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with a 3-0 vote.
Thank you all. Report, Councilman Galvin.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, God, I guess that's it. No, report, Madam Manager, not me. Meeting is adjourned.
I have not, yeah.
Who first? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, Scott did, and I seconded it.
The motion was.
Galvin?
And can we check
Okay.
Robert's rules? There's actually, once the motion is made to adjourn, it's automatic. It doesn't need a second, it doesn't need a vote. So,
Okay, perfect.
if
Thank
we
you.
move to adjourn, we're done.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:17.